They talk about their ex on a first date, red flag.
The better flag would be, this is what I learned from my past relationship. The red flag is my ex is a complete crazy person.
Like, guess what? Everyone's ex is crazy, but you all dating the same person. Like,
yeah.
I hate people say that.
So and also it's like, but you love them. So what does that say about you?
Right. You're listening to Sex with Emily. I'm Dr. Emily, and I'm here to help you prioritize your pleasure and liberate the conversation around sex. Question. Have you ever found yourself stuck in the same relationship patterns, wondering why love feels so hard? Today, I'm joined by the incredible Jillian Turecki. She's a relationship coach, educator, and host of Jillian on Love. I first discovered Jillian during the pandemic, and I was instantly hooked. Her content is real, raw, and most importantly, actionable. She breaks down why so many of us struggle in relationships and help us shift the focus inward. Because let's be real, love starts with you. In this episode, we dive deep into the hard truths about love from her new book, It Begins With You, where Jillian shares 9 powerful insights that can truly change your love life, from breakups and attachment styles to why we keep attracting the same type of partners, hello patterns, and how to spot the most common red flags. Jillian keeps it real with practical tools to help you build the love life you deserve. Plus, we talk about the power of self-acceptance, why lust isn't love, even though it feels amazing, and the biggest mistakes people make when looking for connection. Whether you're single dating or in a long-term relationships, this episode is packed with insights you don't want to miss. Please rate and review Sex with Emily wherever you listen to the podcast. It just helps get the show out to more people like yourself. You can find me on all social media, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter or X, YouTube, Facebook, all of it. It's all at Sex with Emily. And please check out my new article, How Anxiety Affects Your Sex Life and What to Do About It. That's up at sexwithemily.com. All right, everyone, enjoy this episode. You all know I'm always looking for ways to enhance pleasure, relaxation, get yourself in the mood, get myself in the mood, and honestly, just make life feel good. And if you're like me, you want something that fits into your lifestyle without feeling guilty or overwhelmed. Well, that's why I love Via. Whether you're just setting the mood in the bedroom, yes, please do that, or just unwinding after a long day, Via has you covered. They've got these award-winning THC and THC-free gummies give you just the right amount of feel good without taking over your day. It's all about that perfect balance, getting the benefits without the, oh my God, I can't function at the moment. And you know I've tried a lot of products, but Via is next level. Their vapes are so smooth and their THCA flower, incredible quality. My favorite Via products, which you heard me talk about a lot, is their High Love gummies. They're just delicious and they work every single time. They get you in the mood, they relax your body, you get out of your head. Trust me. I think I've gifted these to almost everyone I know. Everyone I know who'd be down, you know what I'm saying? Via legally ships to nearly all states in the US in discreet packaging directly to your door with a worry-free guarantee. So if you're 21 and over, head to viahemp.com and use code Emily to receive 15% off. And if you're new to Via, get a free gift of your choice. That's VIIAHEMP.com and use code Emily at checkout. This year, enhance your everyday with Via. So recently I was asked by Oprah Daily for my top recommendations for women's vaginal health. And top of my list, first thing that came out of my mouth was V-Health. V-Health is a revolutionary technology for your vagina. See, it's a serum that uses bioengineered growth factors to regenerate your vaginal tissue naturally. It's moisturizing, it's soothing, and it even balances your pH while you sleep. So all that dryness and irritation and extra discharge, it's not a thing anymore. And if you've dealt with painful sex or frequent UTIs, V-Health can help with those too. Oh, I should also mention it's won a Nobel Prize, which is probably why it came to mind first. It's hormone-free, non-invasive, and works for all stages of life for women. Postpartum, perimenopause, menopause, you name it. All of them. All the stages where you're like, what is going on with my vagina? And you can use it externally on your vulva to enhance sensitivity. Trust me, it's like giving your vulva a spa day. And we all need that. So treat yourself to some real comfort and connection. Go to getvhealth.com and use code Emily25 for 25% off at checkout. That's getvhealth.com and use code Emily25 at checkout. getvhealth.com, code Emily25 at checkout. Your vulva deserves this kind of care, so check it out. So much for coming on the show, Jillian.
Oh my God, thanks so much for having me.
So excited to have you. I want everyone to know that I first discovered you, Jillian Turecki, over the pandemic on my Instagram, and I was completely sucked in because I love doing the work on myself, learning about trauma, all the things. Like my ex used to joke, he was like, trauma's like your love language. I'm like, tell me your traumas. I love it. But like, Jillian, girl, you're calling out why so many people are suffering in relationships, and you make it so accessible. You know, you like all of your information is like easily digestible. But what's really unique about your content is that when it comes to relationships and dating, you really encourage people to look inwards and not outwards for the answers. And you say that a relationship is like a mirror. It will reflect to us the relationship we have with ourselves. Yeah. And I just love that.
Yep, it is the truth.
For those of you unfamiliar, Jillian Turecki is a relationship coach, an educator, and podcast host of Jillian on Love, which I was on last year. I loved our conversation.
I loved it too.
So you got to check that out. But now she also just came out with her new book, It Begins With You, to share the 9 hard truths about love that will change your life. Who doesn't need that?
I mean, really.
So Jillian, I was thinking about you. I've read your book and done all my deep dives. And we have a very similar path. So I got into sex with Emily 20 years ago because I was having sex that was very disappointing. It wasn't great sex. I was like, if another guy pounds away at me like a jackhammer, like I'm just gonna like give up sex altogether.
I mean, it would be worth giving up sex.
Right? I was like, what is this? Why is this happening? And so I went out to seek answers. And I thought, you know, and I realized a lot of people were having a lot of those same issues. And I wanted to heal myself, heal them, research is me search. And you, on the other hand, 10 years ago, in 2014, on my birthday, June 2nd, I'm sorry about that, you found out that your mother had terminal cancer.
Well, I actually found out way before that, but on that day was like around that day, I found out that she had like maybe a couple more months to live. Okay. But the diagnosis I had been living with, and my husband at the time knew that. And that's also when he decided to just like up and leave. Yeah.
Let's talk about this. Your husband up and left. You had a miscarriage. Yeah. It was like a horrible day, but it's
pretty hard.
Like probably the worst day.
Pretty
of your life.
bad. Yeah.
Right. And so from there, you decided you had to turn your life around and started on a new path. So could you just tell us about your journey to becoming?
Yeah. So prior to that, I'd been teaching yoga for many years. It wasn't 18 years yet, but I had taught yoga for almost a total of 20 years. And I loved it. You know, I'm a very dedicated yoga practitioner. You know, we have some of the similar friends in that space. And I always felt like, you know, there was something more. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I felt like there was something more that I could do. And I didn't know if it was like open up a studio, which I didn't want to do at all, or do something else. And anyway, I ended up meeting the man who I would later marry and then later divorce. And I always say that we had like 90% of our relationship pre-marriage was great.
Okay.
Very compatible. Just very compatible. A lot of like love there ish. And well, there was a lot of love there as I understood love to be at that time. Not so much as I understand love now. But 10% was really problematic. And what I mean by that is that I ignored some very, very significant red flags. And also because I didn't have the tools to cope with what was presented to me. When we got married, that 10% became the 90% of our relationship, and the 90% became the 10%, because people think when you get married, your problems are going to go away, when actually it magnifies everything. And it was a very challenging marriage. It only lasted 2 years. And the way that it ended was really tragic. It was like, you know, over a text. And this is something that he later regretted and whatnot processed. But, and my mom was dying of cancer, and I had a miscarriage. And I thought, you know, I have to figure out a way to claw myself out. So there was one question that haunted me and also motivated me at the same time, which was, what does it take to make a relationship work? Because when I say devastated, that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface. I was absolutely traumatized, devastated. And I was so devastated by the fact that like, oh, here I am, 40, like I'm getting divorced, and like, I don't have a kid. And, you know, what is society going to think? Like all these, the weight of society on your shoulders. But even more so was just like, I can't believe this didn't work. And I felt so like a tremendous failure and very, very, very scared. I was terrified. And so I went on a quest, and the quest was sort of two-part. One, how am I going to feel better? How am I going to get over this? And two, what the hell does make a relationship work? And I've been obsessed with that ever since, for almost the last 10 years of my life. And here we are today. Yeah.
So it's kind of like from that pain point of like, what does it take? And you didn't want to have that hurt again. So you want to make it right? By learning all the tips, the tricks, and the tools. And
yes.
Like what it looks like. So in these last 10 years, you've found a lot. You have such incredible information that you are able to help people really on the path, because I think that we're so not taught how to love. No one's teaching us that. No. And so I guess in the same way as like no one teaches how to have sex, no one teaches us how to be in a relationship and what love even looks like.
Yes.
So, and you also talk a lot about like dating and relationships too. It's all part of finding love, right?
Yes.
And so you've probably been on your own path through that too. But I was thinking a lot about dating, and I was thinking like, what are people struggling with the most now? And I was thinking about this because, well, dating's always been hard. Like, let's say 20 years ago, we didn't have the dating apps to complain about and to be like, oh God, there's too many people, the bigger, better deal.
But people still complain 20 years ago. Yeah, exactly.
So it's always been, dating has always been
difficult. Yeah.
So what would you say people are struggling with most now? And so it's really not that different, but what do they need now in dating? Why it sucks wherever they live, whatever, but
here's the thing. I think that we're hearing more about how much it sucks because 20 years ago, we didn't have social media. So we have to really take into account the role of technology in this. People are able to voice their opinions, and the spread of information is so fast, but like it's never been easy to find love. It's not like it's impossible, but you just don't meet that person every day. Like it is a thing. And this, forget about 20 years ago, the last 100 years, this is not something. But what I will say that in other cultures, it's a lot easier because there's arranged marriages, and there's also what's the word I'm looking for? It's the mentality of going into love is, find someone with similar values you can raise a family with. And by the way, we have the whole village of the family helping. So part of what's made it difficult, aside from dating apps and technology, is our understanding of love and our expectation of love, I should say is a better word, has changed. So never in history have we ever really wanted like a soulmate, right? Someone who's going to fulfill all our needs. We have in more modern-ish society and well beyond, in the last couple hundred years, this idea of, which I know is not modern society, but this idea of romanticism also is something that's been plugged for a couple of centuries, I would say now. Yeah. But then like the modern take on that is the rom-com, right? So we have all these examples of what it is to have tremendous chemistry with someone. We have these examples in literature and in film of what the whole chase of getting together, right? And then it's like the actual getting together, and then it's like that's the proverbial climax for all of us. It's like they got together, it's like now we can relax, right?
We went to the wedding, we saw it, we threw the rice, they're off and they're good.
They're good. And there's no examples of like what actually happens after, which is actually when the real relationship in many ways starts, when we're not on the pedestal and we're past the honeymoon phase. And that's where I have been really interested, is like, okay, what really has to happen after that? And speaking back to my ex and I, like the couples therapy that we had was terrible. We had great therapy. Like I had great individual therapy, but the couples work that we did, and we tried a couple of different people, and it was absolutely terrible. And I thought there has to be another way. So when I first entered this space of just working on people and their relationships versus just their relationship with themselves, which I did with yoga, I really wanted to work with couples, and I worked with hundreds of couples. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. But then got a little exhausting, and I really wanted to also work with singles looking for love, because who you choose to partner with, who you choose to spend your life with, I think is the most important decision you will ever make. And then also because I had, triumphed, and I put that in giant quotation marks, if you will, after divorce, I really also wanted to help people with heartbreak and overcoming that. So I kind of, I try to help people in sort of all
that's so much
stages.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you're working with hundreds, I mean, because couples is like you're dealing with two people.
It's very intense.
Issues. It's so intense.
Yeah.
And then individuals, you can really get in there, but I could see that would be exhausting because also, and the thing is like, it's so, I mean, the hard part is it's so much about doing our own work, but then once you do your own work, how do you do it in relation to somebody else?
Yes.
Right. So, and that's a lot of your work is, it begins with you.
Yeah.
So, which is just, it's true. I mean, you can't, and so what I want to ask you this is like, I feel like you cannot swing a cat in this town anywhere on social media without hearing about this person's a narcissist, a toxic relationship, gaslighting, how to discover if someone is toxic. But what I find so interesting about your content is you are way less focused on diagnosing your partner and more focused on what you yourself can adjust and bring to the table, what we can do in the relationship. Because at the end of the day, we can only control ourselves. So tell me a little bit about this. First, do you think that there is any use to diagnosing our partner and finding out what they did, what's wrong with them? Because I feel like maybe it's nice to know, but I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think that when you're dealing with even a dating scenario, because like going back to why dating is hard, okay, so the expectations of the one and soulmate who's going to fulfill everything. Then there's the dating apps, which is very real, where there's a lot of creating of disposability and people feel disposable and people aren't meeting in real person. And so those things add complexity to all of this. I think that if you were in a relationship where you were very manipulated, even if it was a dating relationship or something much more serious, I think that if you've ever been in something that was very confusing, like someone was totally into me and obsessed with me, and then I literally never heard from them again, and when I reached out to them, they did not reach me back. Or if like you are in a relationship and there's a lot of manipulation, it helps to give you some context because then you're like, then there's the validation of, okay, well, maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe this person really is kind of the crazy one in their own right. But, and I should say, this throwing around, there's some pretty selfish people out there. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily a narcissist. Like we all have narcissistic tendencies, and some people, and it exists on this.
It's a spectrum.
I do believe it's a spectrum, and if you really do have narcissistic personality disorder, you are a dangerous person emotionally. But there's a lot of people who behave very immaturely. They're emotionally immature, and there's a lot of people who, when they break up with someone, they do not take time to self-reflect, and they just get back into the dating pool and they poison the pool.
And right. That's exactly. So the narcissist is back in the dating pool, but it's interesting is
or just a selfish person.
Or
the immature person.
Right. The toxic person. Or any person. Everyone gets back into the dating pool.
Yeah.
I wish there was some way to ethically interview someone's exes in like a very beautiful way and be like, because they would probably all say the same thing happened.
Yeah.
I know people have tried to do this and it doesn't go well. Like there was some like Facebook group early on, don't date my ex.
Yes.
But it's all there. It's like you would know that people repeat their patterns. But I guess what I'm also asking here is that, okay, so I guess you could spend so much time being like, they were wrong. And then that kind of makes you feel better because you're living in anger. But what I love, a lot of what you talk about is like,
what's your pattern?
Why are you attracted to that person?
Yeah.
What is it about you? And I think that's really hard because sometimes it makes people feel good. Well, they were a narcissist or they were a cheater.
Yeah.
So I'm absolved.
Yes,
but you're not necessarily absolved.
No.
So how do we turn that lens back towards
I will tell you
us?
exactly.
Yes.
Okay, so many, many years ago, I was in a relationship with a person who abused me. So toxic to the max. Toxic to the max. Not just someone who was kind of like an asshole or whatever, was uncomfortable, or like they had certain tendencies. Very, very toxic. And what I naturally arrived to getting out of that was what was that in me that led me to this? Like, I have to make sure this never, ever, ever happens again. And I think that when people are really honest with themselves, they are able to have that sort of inner dialogue where they say, like, why did I attract this person? Or why was I attracted to this person? Or what's wrong with me? And it's, again, I would hate for people to say, well, what's wrong with me? And it's about bringing curiosity to it. I recently had a conversation with someone. She's like, I love therapy. She said, I'll never forget going to couples therapy with my ex-boyfriend many years ago. And it was very validating, but I was looking forward to the therapist telling me like what maybe I was doing wrong, because I wanted to know.
Yeah.
I wanted to know. I wanted to understand. I'm a learner. So I think that people really have to have, put on their curiosity hat and just say, you know what? Okay, so this is really true. It doesn't take away, and maybe they were mostly the unhealthy one, or maybe they were mostly, I think the word unhealthy is used too much. Maybe they were mostly problematic. But what was it in me that was part of this dynamic? How did I contribute to what, even if it wasn't dysfunctional, but it just didn't last?
Right.
What did I do or not do? How did I participate in a dynamic that didn't actually work? Unless it's one of those things where it's like you just kind of grow apart and it's like, but
yeah.
And it's very important to be able to do that. That's how you build self-awareness. That's how you grow. And most importantly, that's how you prevent it from happening again. It is pain protection. I am asking people to look within so that they can protect themselves from future suffering.
So exactly. So can you walk me through maybe a case, someone that you've worked with that you could say like, because people might be like, well, I don't understand if you're dating, like, what would that discovery look like? Like I came to you and I'm like, I always date.
So-and-so.
Yeah. I always date alcohol. I have dated a lot of alcoholics personally.
Okay.
And I don't drink. I mean, sometimes, but not a lot.
Was someone, okay. So was someone in your
No
family?
one in my family.
No one in your family. So what are you drawn to in them? Because I have two, but all sober. But some of them sober, but
same though, right? In a way, if they're sober, not
exactly the same thing. Not exactly the same thing, but yeah. Because if you're in a relationship with an active addict, that is true chaos. And then you become the codependent, trying to change them.
It's probably codependency. But anyway, we don't have to make it about me, but we could.
No, but this is.
I think it's interesting to think like, okay, I think I am. I'm sure I probably have a little bit codependency. I think, and then they always stop drinking. Eventually, what happens? What are they? I've been really.
Oh, so you've been with them while they're actively drinking?
Yeah, and then they're like, I can't because I've said.
That's not good.
It's really hard for me to build a relationship with somebody. It's really hard for me to be in a committed relationship with someone who has that kind of relationship to alcohol.
Yes.
And then a lot of them have like stopped drinking.
And it's also
been a while.
And it's also a pattern. So you shouldn't be dating anyone who's in the program or anything like that.
Yeah,
like especially if it's a pattern, because what I would want to understand from that person is, do they have a family member who was either an addict? Are they used to being the fixer? Are they? Do they struggle somewhere in their self-esteem and self-worth in relationships? Because maybe in work they're spot on, that they get into relationships where they feel like they need to be needed. And if they're needed and depended on in some way, like if they are the more grounded one, the quote unquote healthier one, in contrast to, let's say, the example, the addict, then that person will never leave you. And then you can feel sort of validated and kind of have some control over the relationship. That's one thing. Another thing could be, you could be attracted to the fact that they are reformed. They have this dark side that they've had to wrestle with and reform. And that is something, sexy and dangerous and exciting and enticing. And then you think, or there could be, well, this person is sober. They've been sober for a while. They do a lot of work. A lot of people who become sober tend to have some sort of spiritual practice. So you're kind of drawn to that. It could also be proximity. Maybe you're in a world, I'm not saying you specifically, but maybe you're in a world, like as a yoga teacher, I was in a world where a lot of sober people came to. So all of these things, is anything ringing true for you? Yeah.
I think the part about maybe it just feeling safe, I think that I often, even though they're, because to me, it's not about me saving. In fact, I think I'm looking for people sometimes to help me in some ways, but
outwardly, yes. But yet you keep getting into relationships with people who
it's been, who are drinking or who just aren't
If someone is drinking and not in control of themselves, especially, then he can, because you date men, yes? He can never be safe to you, ever. It's impossible.
Right. So ultimately I find out that they're not safe, but I think they're safe in some ways because I know they're so like into it and they're very affectionate. They're very effusive about their love. It just feels,
yes,
but it's just an example. It's one of my, I'm just trying to think.
But this is very important.
Okay,
I think we should roll with it. I think it'll be beneficial, which is that, right, the effusive, they're into me. I have the security because they seem so into me, but really true security in a relationship comes from being able to build a foundation of trust and safety. And you can't do that when they're in the throes of their addiction. It's impossible. And, finding someone who's so into you means nothing if someone doesn't have the character or the same values or the tools to actually be in a relationship with you. But bring it back to it begins with you. What can you, that's your pattern. Most people, what you could do is completely focus on them constantly, diagnose them, figure out their character defects. And maybe you need to focus a little bit on that. But then you have to say, what is it in me? What am I doing? Why am I choosing partners who can never meet my needs? What is my blueprint of a relationship? Oh, they're really into me. They're very effusive. They give me a lot of affection. Yes, I'm going to be in a relationship with them. Not enough.
I don't vet enough, probably. Sometimes.
Yeah, you're not discerning enough. And most people are not. And a lot of women are not because they think this feels so good and we do that. But if we're looking for long-term partnership, we have to be much more discerning.
Well, you know what really resonated too, and I've thought a lot about this, is that, and this is an older pattern, but I think that it's that I sort of know from my own attachment, and I sort of know that they're not safe and that this won't probably ever be a thing because I can't really trust someone who's like that, and really, who's somebody who is in an addiction or has a behavior like that. There's other things too where then I actually don't trust them. I feel like this isn't safe, and safety is so important to me. It's funny because I feel very safe in my friendships and now my family after a lot of work, but with the people I've dated in patterns, it was more oh, I don't have to truly open up and love this person. I know it won't go anywhere. It's not safe, which is sort of a classic thing to think I
oh, interesting.
Well, then the way I've wanted to love has been different. I mean, I was never one who was prioritizing a typical relationship either.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was not looking for, my life wasn't really based upon finding love and marriage and family. It was always much more about creating purpose and being very involved in the world and having lots of life and lovers and
and having lots of life and different lovers.
Yeah.
Okay, got yeah.
That's how it's been. It's been through lots of different paths.
Yeah,
But I just find it interesting. I just love that your work points towards what is our lesson in it, because there's just so many people who are like, they cheated, they're evil, and then and I like that your book goes deep on that, that you ask questions, that these are the questions that you should ask yourself before you go out and date again.
Yes.
Because you will keep recreating the same patterns over and over again, right?
Absolutely.
Until you just deal with it.
And there are a lot of case studies of married couples. There's also what are you doing when you're in the relationship? So it's definitely for people of all stages of relationship.
It is for all stages. So I want to get into that because in your book, It Begins With You, you share 9 hard truths about love. And I'm telling you, everyone has to read this book. It reads like a beautiful story, but you share your deep vulnerabilities and your case studies and how you work with people. And it really is just kind of holding people's hand through different relationships, challenges they might find themselves in. And I love that it allows the readers to reflect on their own experiences so candidly through you and the way you storytell. It's beautiful.
Thank you very much.
So one truth in your book, you can't convince someone to love you. Mm-hmm. And I love this because you talk about the core feeling of being unlovable. So can you explain why that is such a core, why being unlovable is so core for so many people?
I think that everyone has a fear that they're not enough, but obviously not everyone has it to the same degree. But I think in a romantic relationship, all we want is love, and we just want to be enough. And so much of our crappy behavior in a relationship, when we look back and we're like, oh God, I wish I didn't do that. a lot of the time is fear, right? And what's that fear? It's the fear like, I'm not going to be enough. And if I'm not enough for this person, then I'm going to lose them. And it's the loss of love that we are really trying to prevent at all costs, And some people, their self-esteem and their self-worth, like they truly don't believe, they don't believe in their deservability when it comes to love and that they actually are lovable. I mean, look, it's very difficult when you love someone and then you're having some trouble in your relationship or marriage, and then they stop loving you or they don't want to be with you anymore. The first thing that we go to is, oh my God, I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. And that becomes a story. It becomes a narrative. It becomes a mantra. It becomes our own internal hypnosis. And that's something that we carry on our shoulder. We carry it on our backs and it's really heavy and we try to lug it up like these like big hills, right? So much of processing the end of a relationship where someone is like pulling their love away. And then I'll get to what happens when you date someone. Because I think it's important to see it from both perspectives. So much of that is processing the truth of the actual story, not your creation of it based on your understandable pain. Right. So a lot of times is it true that you're not lovable, or is it true that, or rather, is it true perhaps that you've been trying to make something work with someone who you've known very much viscerally inside your bones is not right for you, but because you're so afraid to lose the love, understandably, you've been clinging to this relationship. And then when they pull away, instead of embracing your freedom, which is what you've been gifted, especially if it's a difficult relationship, you go into, I'm just not lovable. And it really is a hypnosis that we all go under.
It is. And it's true. It's like a hypnosis. And it's such a fear. I always think like, and that's one of your truths too, like look at your relationship with your parents, and it could come from like, isn't that just one of our core, like our greatest fear of all is that we're just unlovable, we're going to be rejected, we're going to be alone. And so in relationships, we easily, right, get triggered by it, or things that we do just, I mean, I know I get nervous about it with sometimes even with like work stuff. I'm like reinventing the podcast or doing different things. I'm like, what if people don't love me anymore? What if it's different?
It's scary.
You know what I mean? So it comes back to like, but is that real? Or what if my friend, so I think it's just something that's always, it's kind of like in all of us.
Yeah.
No matter what we do, we're afraid we're not going to be loved,
Oh, it's everyone fears that they're not enough in some way. Obviously, again, a spectrum. There's people with very low self-esteem. They struggle with a lot more. And there are people with healthy self-esteem. And even with healthy self-esteem, there's always that underlying fear that we're not going to be enough.
Okay. Yes. I want to talk about something you said. I might get this wrong, but it was that self-esteem equals self-acceptance. I believe that.
In my view, when I think about self-worth, self-esteem, self-worth, self-love, I think of it generally as a self-acceptance, which just means that even though you are aware of the parts of yourself that might be difficult, that might be challenging, that might be a little narcissistic without being truly narcissistic, that you recognize that even though you have this ambivalence, or like you have this sort of like ick with certain parts of yourself, that you still understand that you are worthy and you have value, and that you deserve love. And that's truly self-acceptance. And I don't know if we ever get to full self-acceptance. I mean, maybe in elder years, but I think that it's a lifelong journey. But it really is about accepting all the parts of yourself. It's like, okay, this is what I struggle with, and maybe this is the thing that I've been hiding from potential lovers, because if they see this, they're not going to love me. But we have to be able to make peace with those parts of ourselves.
Right, because that part is right. We're only like as sick as our secrets. So the parts of ourselves that we think aren't lovable are actually the ones that we need to share. But that's just been a really big, and it's just like you said, it's a journey. And that this is like always hearing how important it is to like love yourself or accept yourself. it's just been a big, even for me personally, I've had so many times where it's like, I decided like this year, I was like, you know what? I am really working towards more self-acceptance rather than self-improvement.
Yes.
Because, and that's kind of what you're saying is like, I see all the things, all the challenges, all the things I want to fix.
And I might be working on that. And you should be like on some level.
And yet it's so easy to go to the like, but all these things are wrong because you'll always be things to fix.
Yes.
So I just think that was such a great, I love that you talked about that. That feels very, very important and insightful. We'll be right back after a quick message from our sponsors. So don't go away. So when was the last time you needed to go to a doctor, but you pushed it off? You know, made the excuse that you're too busy or it'll heal on its own or that you don't really need help. All the excuses. Trust me, I do the same thing. But let's be real. If you're not feeling your best, whether it's like a weird rash, a persistent cough, or maybe there's like this mystery ache, it can totally affect your sex life. I mean, who's in the mood for intimacy when you're Googling, is this normal at 2 a.m.? Well, that's where ZocDoc comes in. And let me tell you, it's a game changer. So ZocDoc is a free app and website where you search and compare high quality in your network doctors. And then you just click and you instantly book an appointment. So you can feel your best right away. You can filter for specialists you need, like primary care, mental health, dermatologists, even OBGYNs. ZocDoc makes it so easy. To get started, all you do is search by your insurance, your location, and availability. Most appointments are within 24 to 72 hours, and sometimes even same day. I've used ZocDoc myself, so whether it's for your body, your mind, your sex life, let's be honest, your sex life impacts everything. If you have a doctor who gets you, this is a confidence booster. So stop putting off those doctor appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/Emily to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/Emily. ZocDoc.com/Emily.
I am super curious about this, and it never came up when you were on my show, which is, so what you wanted at one point in your life was like follow purpose and then have a bunch of adventures and affairs like and lovers. Has that changed?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I went on okay. So I think that I didn't feel that was okay. That's what I wanted, but I felt that I didn't have a lot of role models for that. And I still had this nagging, but that's not okay. You probably should want something else. You should be in a relationship. You should, and so I think just recently I am stepping into the fact that like, this is the life I've always been living. And sort of, I think I was out of alignment. Yeah. It's what I wanted, but I wasn't talking about it because it felt like my life is so full, and I actually have lived that life. And once I let go of it's not okay or it's shameful or it's not accepted, I'm feeling so much more myself.
Yourself, and you feel more connected to it. So if there's adventures and affairs, then would it be like, would you be living together?
I wouldn't say that it's affairs per se. It's more like, listen, I'm always open to anything. Yeah. If I met somebody and it was like, oh my God, I'd be like, how amazing. We could live together and spend that would be great. But I also know the data and the research. The research shows that women initiate more endings of relationships and marriages. Women women actually are happier when they're not in relationships. I know, because the Harvard study was about men, not women. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. It was about men not thriving out of relationships. Yeah, that basically you live longer when you're in a relationship. I mean, obviously it has to be like a good relationship. Yeah, they do. But they didn't. There's no data. It was a it's the longest study that has ever been done. It was a Harvard study, but it was only done with men. So we don't know with women. Yeah. Well, no, there have been recent studies that have shown that women are actually happier. They're more satisfied, that our sexuality actually thrives with the separation. There's all this notions that women are the ones who, like we used to say, become frigid and men want sex all the time. None of that is true. No, none of that is true. We just never understood women's sexuality. And for me personally, I have found that for me to feel really connected and sexual with someone, I actually need my space. I don't think that sharing a bedroom with someone, and sometimes even sharing a home with someone, is where I personally thrive, because there's a lot. I don't want the pressure or the compulsory need to have sex. I love having my own space. And then
Me
I
too.
love having someone come over. That's why we love dating.
Yeah.
But then we move in together.
Yeah.
And everything becomes one. And then we're all desperately trying to figure out how to keep that love alive. When what if you that wasn't normalized? Like, what if you had the choice to not live with someone? And I get that it is a luxury and a privilege.
Well,
and
I think it's important if you're a parent. I think it's important. I do think it's important if you have kids.
Yeah. But if you don't have kids, which so many people
Look, my mom and my stepfather never lived together. I don't think I ever want to live with someone again.
Exactly. Exactly. Right.
But I'm also kind of like monogamous, like long-term kind of thing, you know? But but it would have to be something really extraordinary. Yeah.
Well, it would have to be extraordinary. And I'm just really been into, So right now it's more like, and people are like, are you dating? Are you not? Because I did just end a relationship.
Yeah.
But it's like, I feel like I'm dating as a state of like a state of being. Like I think I'm always open to meeting somebody, but I'm not like, I'm shut off now and not dating. It's just sort of, my life has sort of worked that way. So I think I'm just leaning into what has always been true.
Do are breakups typically something that you recover well from, or do you get very, very depressed and sort of sad and
a little bit of both. I think I've gone in so many different phases. I think I used to be like somebody who I broke in so many patterns. I used to joke. I'd break up with someone this day, and then it would be like I'd turn around and there's somebody else. And then I used to picture myself like a monkey swinging through the branches. Like, there's the next one, there's the next one. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And now I mourn it. I really try to learn like how was it still my pattern? And so I've done it all. But I was going to ask you, like, people always say to me, sex with Emily, like, is it really hard to date you? Like, because people always assume that I'm going to be on 24/7 or maybe they just want to date me. Do you get this too?
Oh my God. That was one of the questions I was going to ask you. Like, or they think you're going to be like, just like some fucking like freaky hoe in the bedroom or like whatever, just like have that kind of intimidation. And like with me, it's like, oh, you're going to know everything about it. It would take a very strong man to be with me who's like very strong in that he's like knows who he is. Right. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah. They put you on this like weird, all this projection.
So much, but you probably get that too.
I have been getting it my whole life since teaching yoga. Yeah, it's exhausting.
Oh my God, it is exhausting. Yeah. So I was just wondering about that. Okay, let's talk about breakups for a minute, because you say going through a breakup is one of the hardest things that a human will go through. Yeah. I think we can all take a moment and think about our breakups. And I thought, it is hard to be broken up with, but truthfully, like my hardest breakups are the ones where I've broken up with my partners. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, am I making the right call? Is something wrong with me for breaking up with them? So like, am I the bad one? So like, what's your advice for breaking up with someone?
I mean, look, breaking up is complicated for everyone. Not every breakup is created equal. Some breakups are actually like kind of easy, and some are emotionally catastrophic, and some are really traumatizing. I think for the person who fears abandonment, to be broken up with reinforces the belief that they're not lovable. That's traumatizing for that person. For the person who feels like they never make the right decisions and they don't feel confident in their decision making, and they tend to go back and forth, and then breaking up with someone, they can go through their own hell and their back and forth. But breaking up, whether you're the initiator or the recipient, like, it all sucks.
It all sucks.
Yeah.
It's all really, really hard.
It's hard.
But so then what would be your best piece of advice for getting over a breakup? Everyone talks about going no contact. Like, what's your thing?
Okay, so no contact.
What's your jam?
So no contact is only possible for certain people. I mean, if you have children, you can't go no contact.
Great point.
So I think to go no contact is a privilege. If you are actually in a position to go no contact with someone, you are very lucky. I think that, I know
it's not just one thing.
Yeah, I think that going no contact is a needle mover. If you can do it, it really helps. But to go directly into no contact when you've been married to someone, even if you don't have kids, can be very, very, very difficult. And so I don't want people to be so hard on themselves. Certainly for the shorter relationships, the really intense 2 to 3, 4, 5 month relationships where you don't really have, a lot of, your lives are not so intertwined. Like please go no contact right away. It will help you so much. But that means you have got to block, unfollow, stop looking at their social media. It really, when you have that privilege, as I would say, it really does. It does help. It helps.
Yeah. It's like quitting anything. Like it's hard at first, but then you get through it. So, okay. So what would your advice be about breaking up with someone? And I feel like I always hear stories from people who are like, oh my God, I was blindsided. I didn't know it was going to happen, or I was shocked. I mean, first off, is that I always feel like there's got to have been clues.
It's
right?
very, very rare that, when someone says, more often than not, when someone says I was blindsided, and these things can happen, but it's like really like, was there a denial there? Was there a lot of conversations? Were you actually really happy? Mm-hmm. Maybe you weren't expecting the breakup, but actually were you not, were you having a lot of talks about the relationship, endless circular talks? But I think that unless you're in some sort of dangerous situation emotionally or physically, the way that you break up with someone is by being very honest, like kind and direct with someone, and trying to give them just as much clarity and just honesty as possible.
Yeah.
And in person, if possible. Yeah. If it's possible, it's the right thing to do.
No text.
Yeah.
No post-it.
No text or no post, bro. No post-it.
Right. Okay, can you show me? So pretend we've been in a relationship. Like, would you actually break up with me right now?
Oh, man. So we're going to pretend that I'm breaking up with someone who's not a complete betraying asshole, toxic person. Okay. We're just this like...
Oh.
I want you to know that I do love you and I care about you a lot. And I know, things have been really difficult between the two of us. And this is not easy for me. I care about you. I care about your well-being. But you know that I haven't been happy for a long time and that we really haven't been happy for a long time. And I think it would be best for the both of us. Maybe not right away. It won't feel good right away. But I think ultimately what's going to be best for us is for us to separate. And this is really hard for me. And I'm really sad. Mm-hmm. And there's a big part of me that doesn't want to do it, but I know that it's the right thing to do. And I know this really hurts, and I'm sorry. And that's just like the initial thing, but it's probably going to be a really long conversation.
I was like, you bitch, I didn't see it coming.
I know. But
that
something
was
along those lines.
That was beautiful. Yeah. No, really. Get thoughtful about it. Be clear, clarity
be kind
is
about it. Be just really clear about it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think about being friends with your exes?
No,
never?
No, not never.
Okay, because
No, not never.
I have a theory,
initially.
Yeah.
Initially.
Right.
So there's nuance, right? There's nuance. Let's say you've been in a relationship and the two of you have been together for a really long time. And the last year of your relationship, you weren't having sex. You really turned into best friends. That's a smooth transition into friendship. Or you turned into like brother and sister. That's a very smooth transition. A lot of people, it's like, can I be friends with this person? Is code for we can't let go of each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or one person's hoping you get back together.
And then it gets really messy. But years down the road, lives change. Yes, of course. I don't really speak in absolutes. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Life is way more nuanced
than that. I'm with you. I just get pushback on this because I am friends with a lot of my exes, but how I've done that is I haven't tended to date. I've been in really like a toxic relationships, but it's not right away.
Yeah.
We don't hang. It's not like we are dating and the next day we're out to lunch. But it takes a few months for the adjustments, and I'm 6 months or a year. But if it's truly a great connection, but it's just better as friends. I've been able to have some really beautiful relationships with exes.
As long as there's boundaries and you're not still in a relationship with them that mimics your romantic relationship, except the only thing that you took away was the physical intimacy.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about, you talk about in the nine heart truths, you talk about, I was very interested in number 3, lust is not the same thing as love.
It's not.
Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about it because a lot of people confuse the two and get themselves into a lot of trouble. And trust me, I've been there too.
Been there.
You've been there. It's like the attraction.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. It feels so good. It's intoxicating. And then we're on each other's pedestals. And what's really happening is that when we're on the pedestals, we are projecting what our 16-year-old ideal version of a partner is, what our crush is, or even what our older, this is the perfect partner because they're like this. And so it's all a projection. And during the lust phase, it's amazing, but you're not actually seeing the person. You it's pretty amazing when you can reach a level of self-awareness where you're like, I'm not actually totally seeing the person. I'm seeing what I'm doing is I am intoxicated with the hormones that are released in my system with this lust, and it's wonderful and you can enjoy it, but you also have to ground yourself by processing your enthusiasm, just saying, this is great, this is wonderful, but I'm not going to plan my future with this person yet because I actually don't know like if we're actually a match, and I don't know this person's character, and I don't know what it's going to be like when we repair. So I'm going to be cautiously optimistic.
But don't just jump right in. I think you say that some people really want more connection, but not a relationship.
Yeah,
right?
well,
they're just craving connection.
Exactly. So there's lots and lots of people there who are craving a connection with someone, and to them, it's like that feeling of the lust, and it's wonderful. What it takes to build, like one of the most profound lessons that I learned is like what it takes to build a relationship, and one in which that's good. And I'm not even talking about great. I'm talking about at least just good. Is you have to build foundation. And that foundation is trust and safety. And that takes time together. That takes, how do we make up after an argument? How do we argue with each other? We have to have a lot of experiences together. We have to meet each other's families, or at least each other's important people. We have to know who this person is outside of the bubble of our existence with them.
Yeah.
And so, that takes some time. There's building. I say the first year of a relationship is very fragile. You're in the building stage.
You're in the building. You got to be paying attention.
Yeah, you have to be paying attention.
Like taking notes. Like, I'm noticing this. It doesn't.
Yeah. And communicate. Do we communicate? Do we have the same communication style? Can we meet in the middle of the communication style? What am I doing to create safety and trust? Forget about just what this person, because people think, and I understand this, I really do. I have nothing but compassion and empathy. I've been there. We think a relationship is a place that we go to get love, get attention, get validation, all the things that mommy and daddy didn't give us, this person's going to give us. This is not necessarily conscious, but we do this. And rarely do we think, what am I going to give?
Right. This person's going to fill me up in all these ways. They're going to be my best friend. They're going to be my confidant.
They're going to be a lover.
Right.
What do I want to give? What do I want to bring to the table? And even more important question, who do I want to be in this relationship?
It's so hard to know though until you're with somebody, unless you do a lot of the work ahead of time, thinking about who do I want to, I guess with each person, you're going to be something different.
Yeah. And you do some of the work ahead of time, but really the meat of the work is when you are in the ring with the person figuring it out.
And everyone really, would you agree that everyone would benefit from some sort of therapy, work, coaching,
some sort of therapy or coaching? Yeah, I think everyone needs to like see a therapist at some point, but I don't believe that everyone has to be like in therapy all the time. I don't believe in that at all.
Okay. But what about this? Like, how do you get couples? Well, I guess it's just that because that process of learning which is what all of your work is about. And as we started this conversation, you have the wedding and you see all that, but no one's talking about like, how do you actually, I've been saying communication is a lubrication, communicate forever.
Yeah.
The actual, like you get into like, how do you actually do that? Like, how do you, like, it's amazing that people call like, well, my partners won't talk about it. They just won't go to therapy. It's like, to me, that's a sign. Like, how much of it is like, for the couples you see, is someone's pushing the other person along? Like, do you think it's good to bring your partner into it?
Yeah, it's
like,
a very good question.
How do you know when to stop?
It's a very good question. Well, what I would say in heterosexual relationships, classically, it's more the woman who wants to talk about it, not the man, because women, we are very keenly aware of what's not working in a relationship. And we have because we're so wired towards safety, one of the ways in which we have to be more mindful as women in relationships is not to only hyper focus on what's missing and also focus on what's there, because women have a tendency to do that and then to lean towards more negativity and bring up more negativity in the relationship, leaving their partner, man or woman, exhausted. So that's one spectrum. But in general, like where men really, I think, need to work on themselves in a relationship is they are really good at compartmentalizing and suppressing and repressing what's wrong and not wanting to look at it. And women more than men are the ones who initiate divorce. And it's for that very reason, because he won't look at it and all she is looking at it, right? So I think that there's definitely cases where I've worked with people where I've said, you're talking about the relationship too much. Mm-hmm. You're actually communicating too much about what's wrong, and you're not doing some of the nonverbal communication of learning how to have a good time with each other. That does happen. But what happens more often is that people are not having the uncomfortable conversations. Yeah. And it's very important. Yeah. And I think that I think you should expect that of yourself and of your partner. Yeah. And just say, and you can even say, I know this is very difficult for you. This is very difficult for me too. I know this is very uncomfortable. By the way, I love you and I want this to go as easy as it can. But we do need to talk about it, and I need to be in a relationship where we can talk about it. So let me know when you're free, and let's sit down and let's do this and be awkward together, and let's work this out. For it.
Yeah. And is there any way to test this out early on? I always think we're in the honeymoon phase. We don't want to have any conversations because it's going so wonderfully because we're riding on the feel-good hormones. Yeah. But I just sometimes wish we could save ourselves some time and suffering. Is there anything you can do to be here's the test. Here's what we can know.
Before you get serious with someone, talk about children, talk about money, talk about sex, talk about religion and spiritual beliefs. Talk about it all. Talk about how you want to live your life. Talk about it all.
Everything. What do you wait? I think that there's still that notion that I don't want to upset them. I don't want to ask them, but this is for yourself, right?
This is for yourself. It's for that. It's to be smart. It's I don't, and some people I don't want to learn that because I don't want to risk losing them. But I'm not a religious person and I'm Jewish, but something that I think is really wonderful. And there's in the Jewish faith, they do this, and in Catholicism, Christianity, they do this, and maybe more. This is just whatever my naivete about this. But one thing is, a lot of people in more religious communities, they speak with a counselor, maybe it's their rabbi or their priest, and they speak to someone before they get married to really go over these things. Because it's very rooted in values. And let me tell you something, I think that's a very good thing.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so let's play a little bit of game. Let's play a little game. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So you put a lot of content out about being able to identify red flags. So I want to play a game with you. Red flag or not. And I tend to look I read red flags. I'm well, it could be this or that, because when something happens in a relationship, sometimes I think, we're just gathering information. Okay, they're late, gathering information. They didn't, forgot their wallet, gathering information. Yeah. But that said, for the sake of the game, wallet. Right? I'm again, they're late. They don't offer to pay, whatever. So I feel sometimes I'm just gathering information, but maybe it's a red flag. But for the sake of this game, as a relationship coach, counselor, author, all the things.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. If they constantly check their phone, red flag?
Are we talking about a date?
Yes.
Like a first date, in the beginning.
It could be a date or in a relationship. Maybe this is
in a relationship. There's a lot of nuance. I think that would be easier to maybe put this in the.
Okay, first date.
Yeah, red flag.
I'm with you. First
Unless they are a parent and they said, listen, I'm a parent, I have a babysitter, I have to check my phone because it's a new babysitter. That's literally the only excuse.
Right. Or their doctor on call.
Or their doctor on call.
But they should be on a date.
Or they have a family member in the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then they should, exactly. Then they shouldn't be on a date. Exactly. Okay, so yes, red flag.
They're late to a first date. Red flag.
Yellow flag. I need more information.
If they don't respond to your texts, but they're really busy at their job.
Well, it's not. If you're dating someone, they have a big job and they're only able to text you back at the latter half of the day, that's perfectly fine. They're busy. And you should be busy too. But if they just don't respond to you that day because they're quote unquote too busy, red flag.
Okay. If they talk about their ex on a first date, red flag.
It depends on what context. The better flag would be, this is what I learned from my past relationship. The red flag is, my ex is a complete crazy person.
So I love that nuance.
Yes.
So true. When they're like, my ex is crazy. I'm like, guess what? Everyone's ex is crazy. Were you all dating the same person? I hate people say that.
So and also it's but you love them. So what does that say about you?
Right. Exactly. You love this crazy. But to say, this is what I love when they lead with my ex and I'm learning from that. That's beautiful. That's
or the ex is the mother or father of your child. And so you're just kind of sharing that you're kind of laying the groundwork, this is the kind of relationship that I have with my ex-spouse or whatever. Yeah.
If they've ghosted multiple people before
red flag.
That's not going to change.
Even once, red flag.
Even once.
Yeah.
Okay. If they prefer not to talk things out and just wait for it to blow over.
Yeah, red flag.
If they don't have a good relationship with their parents?
Yellow flag.
Okay.
I'd want to know more information.
Okay. I have our 5 quickie questions we ask all of our guests.
Okay.
So don't overthink. Don't think too hard. First thing that pops in your head. Okay. Biggest turn on.
Ooh. Presence. Someone
Presence.
who's like really
Not gifts, but presence.
No, someone who's like really present with me and like really like engaged with me. Yeah.
Biggest turn off.
2, they're constantly distracted, and 2, they're stingy.
What would you tell your younger self about sex and relationships?
My younger self, what I would say about sex is your pleasure really matters, and your body is your temple. Don't let anyone just get inside there.
Yes. What's one thing you wish everyone knew about sex?
It complicates things. Even if you're a very sex positive and very open person, it's always going to complicate feelings with another person, and you need to be mindful of that.
What makes good sex?
I think that's different for people. I think it depends on who you're asking. I can't really say that for everyone.
One more thing I realized I wanted to ask you, if you had to say, what are the biggest things that come up around sex with your clients? Like, what are the challenges right now? Because I'm so into talking about you about all the stuff you do.
Yeah, let's talk about
sex
this.
with Emily.
So a lot of the common things is, we don't have enough sex. They don't do the things that they did in the beginning of the relationship to get me hot. If it's dating, they weren't present, jackhammer kind of thing, or just like whatever. But yeah, not enough sex, or I'm not sure if I'm still attracted to my partner or not.
Yeah, that's a big one. And then you can go back and read your chemistry chapter.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Jillian. I so appreciate you. And one final thing, I like to pick out something, send you home with a little more pleasure than you came with. I want people to always leave with more pleasure. You. So I want to gift you this, you can open it up.
Oh my God, I am so excited.
I felt like this toy would resonate with you.
Oh my God, am I getting a new toy?
You're getting a new toy, and this is the Lalo GG3. And I love it because it's soft and powerful, just like you.
Oh, thank you so much.
I feel like you have a softness and a strength, and this is a really great toy that hits all the great spots.
I can't wait to try it.
There goes your evening.
There goes my evening date with me.
Some flavored, there's also some flavored chocolatey lubes in there that are really good. And the lime one. And
I've never tried,
they taste so good.
Ooh, there's a chocolate one and a green apple. These would be my choices.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Felt that. Okay, well, gosh,
this is very exciting.
And it also is app controlled, which is kind of like, which is of the future, just like you.
What's that?
It's app controlled.
Oh, app controlled. Oh.
So someone else could control it. I believe that's how it works. Someone else could control it from another country, another room.
Oh my God.
There's an app.
That's fucking amazing.
I know, right? So I was like, it's very futuristic.
It is. I love it. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Okay, so thank you for being here. Thank you for all you do. Where can people find you? What's going on?
Well, the book, JillianTurecki.com/book. And then, of course, my Instagram, Jillian Turecki, my podcast, Jillian on Love, and just all social media channels.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's it for today's episode. Thanks for listening to Sex with Emily, and be sure to like, subscribe, and give us a review wherever you listen to the podcast, and share this with a friend or a partner. You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, or X, and Facebook. It's all at Sex with Emily. Oh, and I've been told I give really good email, so sign up on sexwithemily.com, and while you're there, check out my free guides and articles for more ways to prioritize your pleasure. And if you'd like to ask me about your sex life, dating, or relationships, call my hotline, 559-TALK-SEX. That's 559-825-5739, or just go to sexwithemily.com/askemily. Was it good for you? Email me, feedback@sexwithemily.com.